What's up, folks? Casual Dad here, and we are right now watching some gameplay of Deadlock, the game that doesn't exist. This is Valve's game that they just officially put open for, I think, like pre-alpha play, so like early version play. And what we're watching right now is, again, SK's playthrough. This is a really good guide. I will link in the channel. I really recommend watching it. But I want to just put it up here while I talk a little bit about the game. So Valve, very exciting because that's the company most famously behind Steam, but also they're really famously behind the Half-Life series and then also the Team Fortress series. So they put out a lot of pretty famous games, and they're one of those unique companies where they have that kind of endless income from Steam, so they can take all the time in the world to make their games, and they have some really long-standing developers. So they've got huge institutional knowledge, the longest runway they could possibly want, and they've made very successful games before, so they have time to do stuff really well. So when Valve comes out with a game, people are really excited about it. And this one has been building for a while because there have been some insane number of players for months now, but they were in the very strict NDA zone of the early release stuff. So we've been aware of this, but Valve has denied its existence until very recently. But it's a really interesting and very ambitious game, and there's a lot to it, right? So watching SK play here, you see it's a hero shooter, so you have teams playing against each other. Let me see if I can jump a little bit ahead. Got movement, advanced movement, and I really recommend watching this guide if you want to play Deadlock, because SK really broke down some of the details here and did a really great job. But one of the things I really want to highlight is that this is... Ooh, yeah, let's do the actual gameplay. So this is a MOBA. It's I forget the actual name of that, a massive online battle game, something like that. But what it is a laning game where there's actual infrastructure on the way that you have to deal with. And I'm going to do a quick intro here, then I'm actually going to show some Heroes of the Storm real quick just to explain how that helps understand Deadlock. So you can see in the bottom right, there's this very complicated mini-map with 4 lanes. You've got 2 bases, friendly one on the bottom, enemy one on the top. And each hero, I believe there are 5 heroes? 6 heroes, okay. So there are 2 lanes with 2 heroes and 2 lanes with 1 hero from each team. And you're supposed to fight in that lane along with some AI players, AI creeps. They're little kind of, these little robot monsters. What timing, SK, nicely done. And you go through and you fight in that lane and you defeat towers, which you can also see here on the left of SK's play right now. So you get experience as you lane and you get more progress, and your little AI guys get more powerful, and you beat the opposing infrastructure. You're actually fighting through an enemy base while they are fighting through your base to level up, get items, get souls, which you see there in these glowing green things, which are currency. And so battles get more difficult as you play because each team gets more and more powerful in-game. But also, obviously, again, it's a hero shooter where you pick from a roster of heroes. You have a pretty significant roster to pull from, and every single one of them has 4 abilities, plus melee and range stats, plus weird special abilities, and then also this has the MOBA item shop. So mid-game, there are multiple places where you stop and spend currency to buy stuff. So hero shooters are some of the most mechanically demanding games out there at all, because it's a little bit like Dark Souls, but faster, with real players playing against you all the time. And then on top of that, it's got the game complexity of a MOBA. So this is very ambitious by Valve. I'm actually a little bit surprised they decided to go this route, because they're giving the highest possible barrier of entry to this game, and they've really got their work cut out for them making this approachable. So props to them. I think they're going to do a good job. I bet it's a good game, but of course it's in a very early release, so there's a lot of practice to be done. SK did a really great guide video. This is a really good one. Then also Day 9 did a video that's all about how much he loves the game, which was a lot of fun. But he really dives into some of the MOBA-esque aspects of the game that make it stand out as unique. And there's, look, oh man, SK, you are amazing. Look at that vibe. Just like, here's the thing. So what you saw was the 3 stacks of slots. You have your ranged, your health, and your magic item stacks, and you can have 4 of each in each slot, and you can only spend your resources on up to 4 of each. So you get 4 damage items, 4 health items, 4 magic items, or 1-1-1, 2-2-2, whatever combination you want, but you max out at 4 slots. Now, right out of the gate, there are a couple things that this does that I'm going to mention that I don't like. The mechanic number 1 is last hitting, and that's where if you're killing a creep, one of these AI minions, it releases experience. but only the person who actually shoots the floating experience when it comes out gets it. So not only can the enemy team steal it from you if you get the kills and they get it first, but also your friendly players who are in the same lane can actually steal your experience from you, which I don't love, because that adds an element of there's a feels bad of getting the stuff taken away from you by an opponent last hitting, and then also there's that internal competition if another player decides to be a troll, whether it's because they think they're better or just to be a jerk, and steals all your experience in the same lane. Like, there's a lot of negativity that can come from that, and I don't know that it's necessarily worth it as a game mechanic to offer that counterplay, so iffy on that one. The other one is items. I don't really love the item. Ooh, hello. I do enjoy Kung Fu Panda. It's a great series. The other one is items. There's the Curiosity shop there on the right where you buy items. Now, the thing about items is it adds just this whole level of standing there and shopping mid-game, which feels pretty weird in a hero shooter where you're trying to play through quickly. So you want to kind of understand what you're looking at and get a ton of practice to figure out what these items are and what they do. Now, Day 9 made me feel a little bit better about the item shop by highlighting that there are no bad items. Every single item you get for your weapon gives you a passive buff to your damage, in addition to whatever other effects it does. Every single health item you get makes you harder to kill, in addition to whatever else it does. And with magic. So they're all good. None of them are bad. But, of course, there's that ceiling where if you learn a really, really good build, you can go ahead and build something up very, very scary. And here you see one of those big bases. SK's about to peek, and boom, tower's about to attack. So that's some of the infrastructure you actually take down. But yeah, so Day 9's commentary on the items, I really liked that there are no bad items. There are no necessarily bad choices. So when you're just starting out in kind of early games or practice games, you really can just be like, I don't know, damage, boom, done. Or just get damage, health, or vice versa, whatever. And it won't be wasted. And you'll be able to actually functionally play the game with players of roughly equivalent skill. And then if you really want to get into it, then you can kind of figure out what are the best items for your build, how you prefer to play from there. So, but still, for anyone getting into this, look at Reaper ult. There's your item shop right here. For anyone who's not familiar with these kinds of games, because again, it's both a hero shooter and a MOBA, this is just a massive thing to start with. And so that's why I kind of want to take a break here. I've gone ahead and shown Deadlock itself. I don't know what's going on there. And I'm going to actually do some play of Deadlock, but first I want to go ahead and look at some of these other game types that this uses. So I'm going to take a quick break and we'll jump in there.
What's up, folks? So for part 2 of this, where we're talking about Deadlock as a MOBA, I'm going to play an actual MOBA. And this is my personal favorite, Heroes of the Storm. Shout out to Grubby on this one, because of course he loves it too. And so it is a hero-based game, where you have a hero that you play as, and just like Deadlock, you have mobs, or you have creeps, where both teams have these little AI players that just, or these little AI characters that just spawn against each other. Your heroes have abilities, you play against each other to get experience, and you get experience both from taking down the mobs and taking down enemy heroes. Of course, you have to heal and get stuff out here, and you can see that infrastructure. My towers, my gate, my wall are all here just as things that the opposing team has to fight through, just like I have to fight through theirs. And you can see me getting experience and playing some team fights here. And I chose Raynor because he's one of the most comparable heroes to something like Deadlock, in that it is it's kind of a classic FPS type hero. And now this was I'm just playing an easy game against AI here, so this should be a complete wipeout. The AI is playing poorly, and I'm doing dumb stuff, such as solo landing by myself up here, or I'm getting attacked. And now I did want to highlight a couple things about this, because they're things that haven't really been mentioned in any of the Deadlock videos I've seen. One of the big ones being that this is laning, which has been talked about quite a bit, but also there's jungling. So you're seeing a lot of the enemy heroes come out of this space here, which is the space between lanes. How do I pause? Nah, I just won't even worry about it. Okay. Never really paused one of these games because you don't play against AI, you play against people. But there is the jungle between lanes, and so there's always the option in something like Deadlock to switch lanes, which is something that hasn't really been talked about in the videos I've seen. And you see me right now doing damage to these structures. I'm leveling up to gain an additional ability. And that is kind of what you have in place of items in other games. So things like League of Legends and oh god, it was Dota, Defense of the Ancients. Those are kind of the two reigning champions of the MOBA space, aside from Here's the Storm, which of course is the best. And they use items in a lot of ways to build your build. So you still level up, you still get that, but then you also buy items throughout shops in the map. And one thing I kept trying to bring up here is that you have your lanes, but right now I'm going off lane. I'm not in my primary lane. I went through the jungle, the space in between lanes, to go ahead and go to an additional lane, just to kind of show that. And also, just like in Deadlock, MOBAs have these creeps. Camps? What do you call these? Mercenaries? Where you have these other AI things that you can go ahead and beat in a fight if you have the time and the space and are a character who can solo handle these. And then if you beat them, they give you benefits in-game. Most often, they will actually join your solo AI laners and attack your opponent. Sometimes they'll give you other things like vision or healing items or items you can drop to help you in the fight, but usually they will come in and do the fight for you or with you. And man, I left my lane for too long. It's become complete chaos. But this is just such... It is really funny going from Deadlock or basically any modern games. The graphics in this could be described as quaint. But it is a really... And there are objectives throughout the game too, which is a little bit different from Deadlock as well. I haven't seen side quests mentioned yet. I want to say they've been mentioned, but I haven't actually seen any in play. And I've got my golems, or not golems, ogres, right here helping me out. And I don't want to play too much of this. I'm not going to play the whole game. I just kind of wanted to highlight how this works, so that you can keep this in mind when you're playing or trying out Deadlock. Just because it's some of those mechanical things that will be hard to learn while you're learning the control scheme and new heroes and such, you also will have to figure this out as well. And so it's good to play a simplified or understand a simplified game to see what's going on and make a little bit more sense of it while you're actually playing. And I got a hero. I got one. And here I'm being silly taking out the walls, which does remove visibility from my opponents, which I don't know if that's a thing in Deadlock. We'll have to see. But it also gives me more space to maneuver and run around if we end up in a tight fight, which we might hear in a minute. But also you can see how important it is to actually protect your creeps, because they actually can do quite a bit of offensive damage to your opponent's infrastructure and help you progress. Because in Deadlock and in MOBA, the goal is to fight down lanes to attack the opposing core here. And every time you take down a lane, like I just took down one of the main castles here, that unlocks stronger creeps at my base. So our creeps that are going in this lane will be more powerful. Uh-oh, they're coming for me. Oh no, that's my friendly one. Nice. Again, these are easy AI, so this should be just a complete scrub match. I should just utterly wreck these. So I may play actually through where I get to the core just so you can see that. And you can see in the top bar, you can see the health of your heroes and their basic energy, so you can track and help them out in-game. And then also you can see your team experience level. We're 10 blue versus the red 8. This never happens. This is definitely an easy match. I should not be having... These ogres should have been taken down ages ago. You get your ultimate abilities. I don't think I've landed a single one of those bump back shots. I hit 3 of 1, actually. Anyway, so I don't want to stick too much on this because this is kind of the background? I don't even know what to call it. It's kind of the subtext of Deadlock, where it is the actual way you play the game, but the actual gameplay isn't at all like this. Kind of. I mean, you can see me being careful with my resources. Not terribly careful because it's an AI match. And making sure that I'm playing safe and not dying as I'm advancing my objectives here down the lane. I should not be in this fight because I'm out of mana. But we have the level advantage here, so we are much more effective against our opponents than they are against us. And I have an ability that makes my little dudes a lot better, and I also have an ability that makes me do more damage to non-heroes, which are these guys. Save up some mana for a bit. He's a tank. I shouldn't be doing this. Now, Heroes of the Storm and most MOBAs have very defined roles, and see, this catapult is something that you don't get until you've taken down some of your opponent's defenses, and that is much better at siege damage, and actually they can win the game for you. There's a slang term, winions, when the game is actually won by creeps while the fight is going on elsewhere. I love it when that happens. Sucks when it happens to you when you don't check the map enough to see that there are catapults taking out your base, but... And you can also see this does have the mechanic where when I kill creeps, I do get some experience, but most of it I have to actually be present to pick up, and those glowing orbs that float to me. But there is no last hitting. Those don't go to my opponent if I don't get them in time, and they can't be stolen. Well, excuse me, they don't go to... Yeah, they don't go to my opponent given time or if they shoot them first, and they don't go to other friendly players because any experience you get from any part of the map is shared. So I never have to worry about competing with my teammates for resources, because they will be working with me and we all benefit together. I hope my team is doing a lot of work here, because it feels like most of the enemy team is trying to stop me. This is a pretty quick match. We're going to see. I can't see the timer. It's under my camera right now, but... Winions. Mana. And you can see I have to move a little bit closer into dangerous territory to get the full experience there. It's my ultimate again. And my little minion buff. To really push on through. And there is a mission, an objective on right now. I'm demonstrating very poor play by completely ignoring the mission. That can be an effective way to win, but as you can see, the opposing team just won the mission, which is a problem. Now, I think we should still have plenty of a lead to take care of them anyway, but we gotta deal with this. And this, I assume, is something that's going to be added to Deadlock if it's not in there already and I just haven't seen it. Just that missions where things do change throughout the game based on some of the things that you do as secondary missions. Ah, I got stuck in the zombie wall. Unfortunate. Gotta run back to my teammates. Hopefully not get caught by these. And the AI is doing a lot of weird decision making where it's just switching targets a lot, where really we should be focusing this guy down and then going after our opponent there. But anyway, this is just such a different pace of game than what I've seen from Deadlock, because it is structurally a MOBA, but mechanically a hero shooter. And I'll actually show a comparison here in a second, a very quick comparison with Overwatch, which I'm sure you've seen, but just in case someone's totally unfamiliar with any of these, I want to be sure to go ahead and demonstrate. Because the control scheme in this is incredibly simple. And we have a 4-level lead here, and she's in my ult and taking bonus damage from me, so that was a relatively easy one. Got 2 catapults because I've built them up a bit. And by escorting my minions, I make sure that the minion waves that I have last longer and go further, so they're able to do the actual structural damage, and they will soak damage for me. As long as they're here, towers and defensive structures will attack them first. And my team just got the boss without me. Wow. We must have a significant lead, which of course we do. I knew that. But that map awareness, where I'm watching this mini-map pretty much the whole time, even as I'm playing these fights, is going to be especially challenging in Deadlock because it's a little bit faster of a game. But it's also, again, a hero shooter, so there are moments where the correct choice is to hang out in cover and wait for stuff, which is rarely the case from your traditional MOBAs. It's important to group up, but you should always be doing something, whether it's poking from a tower or doing something. But in things like Overwatch, there are cases where you definitely want to stay and group up in between major moments. help my healer there. And there are different roles. I mentioned that I was up against a tank. I'm playing as a DPS, a damage character. And then also Lily there is my healer. And you've seen several of the enemy healers kind of running around. And that, my understanding is that Deadlock has very loose roles that can be defined. This is going to be major winions. Look, I got 3 catapults here. And the thing about catapults is they're siege, so they can fling from long range, and they are just utterly devastating this core, which is the final objective here. Uh-oh. And as you can see, you can win the game by just breaking one lane. We only have this one top lane broken through to the enemy's defensive structures. But you obviously get a bit of an advantage the more of those lanes you're pushing further, because we only have catapults in the one lane where well, 2 lanes now, actually. So you can see on the map that we actually are doing well here and here in the other lanes, but most of that pressure is coming from this lane that we broke through first. And we kept up that pressure and put the red team on defense, so they really had to work hard protecting against us instead of focusing on doing offense themselves, which they would prefer to do. And now you see you've got laning coming in from 2 sides. And you've got catapults and ogres, who will do a lot of damage very quickly. And you can see the core percent here going down as they're doing damage to it. Use my ult in here. And now we are still a full 5 levels ahead, and boom. Game over. So that is a MOBA. That is one game of a MOBA, which again is what Deadlock is played as. So there we go. Go ahead and end this recording. We'll do a quick bump on Overwatch, and then we'll jump back to Deadlock. Yay, 0 deaths, because it was an easy AI. Woo! Little upvote screen in the end. Upvote Ragnaros, you did good. And here you can immediately notice the change of volume, the change of pace. This is Overwatch 2, this is the hero shooter, and I jumped right into the middle of this. And now coming straight from Heroes of the Storm, you can see how the terrain at the hero fight kind of feels somewhat similar. You're playing for missions across a map where you're using the terrain and using each other's spacing to like fight. But also you're seeing a lot of complex abilities used, you're seeing a lot of aim being important, and you're seeing just a lot of stuff going on all the time. And to play this game effectively, you need to know your own abilities really well, you need to know your opponent's abilities fairly well, you need to know the map, the objective, you need to know a lot of stuff, and you need to know it very quickly, kind of on the fly, live as you're playing. This was an especially aggressive Mauga, so I wanted to spectate him. This is not one of us playing, but RNG Gnome? That's clever, I didn't see that. But yeah, so this is the other half of Deadlock. It is half MOBA, half hero shooter. And I really wanted to highlight that too, because in this there is no level progression, you don't improve over the game. You have a meter in the bottom middle that charges up an ultimate ability, but you just have that when you have it. Your character starts with it, you just have to earn the progression to use it. But you do have control points, you just saw one unlock. That is slightly different than Deadlock because MOBAs don't have that. And in this one too, the spawn positions move up in the map. Whereas typically in a MOBA, when you die, you go all the way back to the very start. So as you progress further towards your opponent's base, you take a pretty serious disadvantage because you have to get over there. Now Deadlock kind of works with that because you have a fast travel system that we'll look at in a quick second here. I'm not going to do super long on this one. I'm actually going to jump back to Deadlock here. I just wanted to show the difference between the two, but again talk about the structural challenges of playing a classic MOBA and how it's a pretty small player base that plays those, relatively speaking. So a lot of people don't know how that works. And then going to a hero shooter, which you think of like Counter-Strike or something, there's a much larger player base, but it still is nothing. It's still a niche. It's not one of like the most, it's not like FPS in general. It's a specific subset of FPS. That was me. Bummer. Yeah, so there's that. So we'll go ahead and jump back to Deadlock.
And then here we're back watching a little bit more actual play, this time by Grubby, who gave us our vibe check. It was pretty funny seeing the different reactions. So SK, the pro Overwatch 2 player, likes it, is excited to see it and keep playing it. Grubby, the MOBA player, actually was pretty iffy on it. I don't think he really liked it. And then Day 9, who I don't know what kind of player Day 9 is, it's just Day 9, loves it, absolutely loves it, and loves some of the things that I'm iffy about. So he made me feel a lot better about it. Grubby made me feel sort of seen if I don't like it, and then SK gave me the tools, I think, to do better at it and get a better feel of if I would actually enjoy it. Because one of those things where like it, I loved it. So all 3 of these videos are really good. I'm going to link them in the description of this. Just if you're considering Deadlock, you have the invite, you want to play it. They're pretty great personalities to get different pieces of the game from it. This is funny. So I mentioned the fast travel system in this. This serves 2 purposes, right? So you can only fast travel, I think, in your assigned lane. So I talked about the jungle and the MOBA that you could use to actually switch lanes. That can lead to people playing somewhat badly, where they're just willy-nilly staying out of lanes and jungling, as it's called. That can be a really effective play strategy, but it can also be really, really bad. And this kind of sticks you in assigned lanes where the fast travel, which you have to be looking up to do it and hold down space. It's space. The number looks funny, but you hold down space while looking up at it. You got it, Grubby. Ooh, actually that looked like you can ride the different lanes. Okay, never mind. Forget my point. But anyway, these fast travel lanes are a really cool way to get you into the fight, because typically you would ride on a mount. But having this fast travel thing is a cool way to get you back in the fight quickly. And you can only progress to as far as your team has gotten. So it lets you quickly get back in the fight, which is very hero shootery, and lets you have these much bigger maps with longer games, but still people aren't out of the fight too much. Like, he really wasn't out of the fight long. Had he used the fast travel quickly, he would have gotten right back in there. So it's going to be a very high-octane, high-stress MOBA that is very demanding on your actual live play skill and aim. Although Day9 mentioned that he plays close-range melee characters because he doesn't have very good aim, so there's always that option. Yeah, so in a lot of ways, Valve has taken the most complex first-person shooter and taken the most complex team battle strategy game, I don't know what else to call a MOBA, and put them together and taken all the best and worst parts of both. And I'm very curious to try it, which I will soon. I have an invite, I've installed it, I'm going to do some videos of actually playing it. I'm very curious to see how this turns out in their execution, both now in the early access, and then also later when they've gotten a little time to fine-tune it and really get it to be what they want. Because I fully expect Valve to have a really great execution with this. They don't release poorly executed games. They don't do the quick release. They don't do the buggy releases. They don't let stuff out until it's done, which is a philosophy that Blizzard used to follow. But really does make for great games. So they've sat on this, they've been developing this for years. And so it's in a pretty good spot, but of course there's a lot of tweaking and adjusting and changes they may make, especially as the player base grows. So anyway, that's it. We'll leave it there. Hopefully this video was fun, and good luck, and look for more Deadlock.